pitch is looped toward shortstop. Petrocelli's back. He's got it. The Red Sox win. And it's pandemonium on the field.
Welcome to the Great American Collectibles Show, brought to you each week by the National Sports Collectors Convention. Join us every Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and get the latest news from the greatest experts in the sports collectibles world. You can watch us on the Great American Collectibles Facebook page, as well as YouTube, or you can listen to us on Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. And now your host, award-winning sports collectibles author, Tom Zappala.
Welcome, everyone. This is a special edition of the Great American Collectibles Show. We had a problem at the National. We had a blast at the National, but we had a problem. So what we've decided to do this week, and my guest obviously is legend, hobby legend, Joe Orlando. Joe and I did an interview that was actually, quite frankly, it was excellent. Joe, the reviews we got were outstanding. The producer for iHeartRadio said this show by far was the best of the weekend. But let me just kind of tee it up and let our viewers know what happened. So I did the show with Joe, but we're going to show just a clip of that. Want to show that one, Lou, if you get a chance. Again, Lou's. All right, so this was the show that you're supposed to be watching right now with myself and some of the heavyweights of the hobby. And we had a great crowd. The interviews went great. People really enjoyed it. They actually really gave us a nice hand at the end. I also did a one-on-one interview with Joe, and Lou will shoot that. That's a nice one-on-one interview that I did with Joe, and that lasted about an hour. And again, we got great reviews for that. Unfortunately, as a matter of fact, Joe was with me. Myself and my lovely wife and Joe and Jackie Curiel from PSA, we were in the midst of, Joe, I was in the midst of my strip steak. I had the strip steak. I had some creamy spinach, salad. My martini was about half gone. And I get a phone call at the table, and it was from the production people at the National, who actually came to the restaurant to look for us. And lo and behold, it told us that unfortunately they lost all of the audio for the shows that were at the National. So it wasn't just us. As a matter of fact, iHeartRadio, they were on before us, and they lost their audio. And the shows that we did, the one with Joe and the one with the gang from Memory Lane and Love of all of them, they lost that audio too. So, and by the way, the shows were supposed to be broadcast this week on iHeartRadio across the country. That's all gone down the crapper, as they say. So what I decided to do is, this is an opportunity, and I hope you folks really pay attention to this interview. This is an interview that I'm doing today live with Joseph. Joe, how are you?
Great. I'm here to ruin what we had created. We can't possibly get it right back to back, right?
I know that, but it was great. You know, even when my wife pays me a compliment, we're doing something right. Because usually she says, it was okay, but it was great, but she said, this was hands down an awesome interview. So we're going to get into a lot of things today, folks. We're going to give you kind of an overview of Joe's thoughts on the hobby and the direction that the hobby is going in. A lot's happening. Joe, first out of the gate, what was your take on the National? You were there for 5 days. What was your take?
One word: chaos. I mean, it was just, I mean, we've had, I don't know how many years in a row it has been a record-setting National in terms of attendance, but I don't know what the final tally was. I haven't looked that up yet, but just using, the eye test, I mean, it blew last year's out of the water, the year before that. I mean, it was as soon as the doors opened on Wednesday, it was just pure chaos for 5 days.
It was interesting. Walking the floor, it was almost like some people were actually a little frustrated because they tried to get to a dealer table and they're 5 deep. So they couldn't get to the dealer table. So they had to move on to another dealer table. I saw that. I saw a lot of that. We were up on the second floor in Hall G, where all the where the podcasts were and all of that. It was jammed. You could not move up and down the aisles of the second floor. It was crazy. Even getting up the escalator.
Yeah, I think for people that haven't been in the last 4 or 5 years, but have attended past nationals, particularly at the Rosemont Center in Chicago. I mean, just imagine, use this visual. The old nationals used to be contained for the most part on the main floor,
Right.
with the exception of a little bit of there was like a side room that they would open up, and that's where PSA would set up to grade, at some point. Now they've opened up multiple rooms on the main floor. They've also opened up the upstairs. Every single room is filled to the max, the entire show.
You lose Tom? Guess we lost Tom.
Oh boy.
This has been going on for an entire week now, so we've had all kinds of issues. So, talk to me about the National again. Joey said it was a record-setting in chaos. What stood out to you that was new? You've been to a bunch of these, so what's going to be your pull-away memory from it?
Well, I was looking at Tom. I think he was trying to get our attention. This show in particular, I think what Tom was alluding to is that if you are a very serious buyer and you're trying to focus and concentrate and really look at what you're buying, take your time, pull out, ask the dealer to show you a card, show you whatever you're looking at, and really focus. It's very difficult to do so. I mean, that's how chaotic the floor was. So it's a different, the explosion that we've have seen the last few years. It's coming from a different segment of the hobby population. So it's they have different motivations. It's a different type of buyer that's out there right now, responsible for that growth. So, but if you're someone who's trying to focus and go table to table and get the attention of the dealer, it can be really challenging because there's just a lot going on that floor. You're getting bumped into, the lighting isn't great to begin with. So it can be difficult. But that's where we're at. So it looks like we're going to probably reconvene at a later time here, which is fine.
All right. Tom, are you going to reconvene?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, what I'm doing is, and my apologies. Can you hear me? Is there an echo or anything?
No, it's good.
Okay, so what I've done is obviously I've taken my headset off. We're having some real technical issues, not Lou's fault. I don't know what the hell's wrong with my headset. So we're going through my computer. Joe, you can hear me all right?
I can.
All right. So again, I don't know what you and Lou were talking about. However, let's get into it. We talked about the thoughts on the national. There's a lot I want to touch upon, and I know we're going to probably run a little overboard. We saw a lot of young investors there, a lot of young collectors, and I saw personally a lot of speculative buying. Now, you've talked about it. I've talked about it. Is it good? Is it bad? I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm getting a pretty big echo there, but I think the word that, when we were talking about this at the National, some may say it's speculative buying. I think another word you might want to use is prospecting. If you're talking about trying to, in a sense, you're betting on a very active athlete to see, you know, they're early in their career, and you're kind of betting on them to see how they're going to turn out. I mean, on the one hand, that has been going on since I was a kid. I mean, when you consider the first hobby explosion in the 1980s, I mean, we were doing it too. I think the huge difference, though, and this is a huge difference, is that the risk is just so much greater. I mean, back in the 1980s, you may have thought that, you know, Don Mattingly or Dwight Gooden was going to be a superstar, or Ron Kittle or Greg Jeffries, and people were, you know, buying these cards for 50 cents, $1, $2. Very different situation than today, because now the price levels are so high that, and you hear about some of these prices realized for guys like Wemby, for example, that are in the 6 and 7 figures. And when the guy has only been in the league for a couple of years, it's a very different level of risk. So the speculation has always been there. People have been doing prospecting and buying and having fun with it, you know, going back 4 or 5 decades. It's just that now that risk is real. I mean, it's not, you're not playing around with $5 or $10, you know, on the guys that you're thinking could become a superstar. It could cost you a lot if something goes wrong.
So what's that? Again, I'm sorry for the echo. What's the best way for new collectors to get educated?
Well, I mean, educated in the sense of, I would say that you've got to, it's really up to you as far as the risk. Look, I'm a freedom guy when it comes to collecting. I try not to be judgmental of what others find interesting or where others would like to spend their money, because I wouldn't want people doing that to me. So I think you should buy what you want, but you really have to understand that if you're going to step up to those levels on guys, you know, athletes that have only been in the league for a few years, where their legacies aren't really set, you're just running a huge risk. That's all. Just be aware of it when I know it's easy to get caught up in it.
Yeah.
I get, you know, look, anyone who's played fantasy sports, what's the appeal of fantasy sports? You're watching the story unfold right before your eyes. It's real time, and there is something special about that. But just understand that, look, something could happen off the field. An injury could send that, you know, player into a downward spiral. I mean, this is the reality of sports.
Or he could eat himself out of the league like Zion Williamson did.
Whatever floats your boat. Yeah, I mean, use any example that you want. That can happen. So again, I would always, you know, personally, I think there's just a level of risk that's not worth taking. But if someone wants to do it, again, that's up to them. Just go into it with your eyes open. That's all.
So let's talk about, and you know, you really hammered this, and it was pretty interesting, the eye appeal effect. All right. There's a lot of conversation currently in the market about eye appeal. What's your take on that? And I want to preface this by saying, we know that there's some third-party graders out there that are doing, you know, whatever you want to call them. But how important is eye appeal in your opinion?
I think it's hugely important, and I would say that I think it's a great sign of market maturity. I mean, look, grading PSA has been around, I can't believe I'm going to say this, for 35 years now. So it's been around quite a bit. And so what you have over the course of time is you get wide variances in some cases within each numerical grade, because so many cards have been graded. There are cards that are, you know, lower end 8s, higher end 8s, lower end 2s, higher end 2s, as it relates to eye appeal. And I think that the key thing here, the key point with eye appeal, is that this is about how the card looks between the lines, in the center of the card. This is not a technical reevaluation of its attributes. So some people confuse those two things. They think, oh, you find a 3, T206 red portrait Ty Cobb in a 3 that has outrageous eye appeal, and you see someone pay a massive premium for that card, and some people are thinking, oh, well, that must mean that card should be a 4 or 5. No, there's technical grading, and there's a limit to how far a card can go under technical grading. But then there's eye appeal, which can be an entirely different thing. So the beauty of it is you can reward cards at all points of the grading scale, 1 to 10, and some just stand out, especially as you go down the grading scale. When you start going down, especially below, kind of that 5, 6 range, you start heading down the scale, you could get really wide variances in eye appeal. And now what we're seeing, and it's not super new, it's been going on for years now. You're seeing more and more people willing to pay a premium because you know what, Tom? Most people enjoy cards at arm's length. They're not looking at them under a loop in a dark room with special lighting. They're not looking at it like a grader would. They're looking at it, they're enjoying it at arm's length. Now you're seeing more people, more people willing to pay a premium for cards that just look terrific, great centering, outstanding print quality, fantastic aesthetics inside the frame of the card.
All right, so playing the devil's advocate, if I may. So I buy that T206 Green Cobb PSA 4, and I want to sell it to Joe Orlando. I have 2 of them. Not that I don't love the hobby, but I have 2. I have an extra one. So Joe Orlando looks at the card, and I look at the card, and we both agree that the eye appeal warrants it, if I had to sell it, being more than a PSA 4, okay? I don't know, maybe equated to a 4.5 or a 5. Is there anything wrong with me trying to push that card because of the eye appeal? In other words, there's a lot of collectors out there, Joe, that are buying cards on eye appeal, even though it's graded, whatever it's graded, and really touting the card for a higher price because, in their opinion, it's got greater eye appeal. Is that happening a lot?
You're talking about from the retailer's perspective, the person.
Yeah.
It is. I would say this. I think what you're getting to is it can be challenging to figure out what premium to charge and what premium to pay. When you're looking at something like that, because there's a lot of ebb and flow here. This is an evolving part of our market, but you can look at auction results across the board the last year or two, and you could see plenty of examples where something that was graded a 2 sold for as much as an average example in a 4 of that very same card. So sometimes it's not just eclipsing the grade above it, it's meeting or eclipsing 2 grades above it. And then in other cases, it's a very modest premium. So it really depends on what the issue is, how challenging it is to get an example with exceptional eye appeal in that particular issue. So there's no sort of one size fits all formula to this, but the results are in. I mean, if you're following the market very closely, and I know a lot of your listeners do, it's been happening. I mean, it's been happening across the board, various eras, various, card types. It's just, we're still in the early innings, it appears, with this evolution of our market and maturity of our market. We'll see how far that can take some of these cards.
Joe, cards remain the backbone of the hobby. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Everybody agrees. But is there an opportunity for memorabilia? I mean, I'm a memorabilia guy. I've given up pretty much my entire card collection, and I'm focusing now personally. I'm focusing on Red Sox, vintage Red Sox stuff. Is there still an opportunity for memorabilia?
Absolutely. I think, one of the things we talked about at the National is, cards, there's a wonderful and beautiful simplicity to them. And I think that that's what attracts, especially so many new buyers. They're part of a set. They're easy to store and ship and scan and photograph. They're graded on a scale of 1 to 10. There is much of a commodity in a lot of cases that we have in the hobby. I mean, they're the closest thing we have to that. So there's a very attractive simplicity about cards that people love. And there's also a tremendous amount of information available to buyers about those cards all over the internet. With memorabilia, there's a lot of nuance. There's not as much information published about them. So we've talked about this. You could have, for example, 2 Mickey Mantle bats with the same grade from the same year, and one is worth 2 to 3x the other one, and a new buyer might not. They say, wait a minute, they're the same grade, it's the same player, it's the same year. How can that be? Well, there are other attributes that can affect value that go beyond the grade. We're seeing a little bit of that with the eye appeal factor in cards, but in memorabilia, it can get very nuanced, very specific to each particular category. So yes, do I think there's an opportunity? Of course, because when a market explodes, when our hobby explodes the way it does, and it has gone through a few different cycles like this in the past, it always leads with cards. And then what happens is some of that energy that sort of enters through the card market starts spreading out into some of these other collectible fields, tickets, jerseys, bats, type 1 photos, you name it. So it always begins generally with cards in terms of the general population getting involved. And then over time, people start expanding their horizons and spreading that energy into some of these other fields. But those other categories, quite frankly, require a little bit more research, a little bit more education before someone jumps in. They're not as simple as trading cards are.
Before we take a break, again, walking the floor, and you and I spoke about it, and I talked to several people about it. We saw a lot of good on the floor, a lot of good. But, there's a lot of bad out there about some of the participants and how they handle the hobby and what their intent is. What is your opinion on the current state of the hobby right now at this snapshot in time?
Well, as you said, all you have to do is use your eyes. If you're at the show, you see what's happening. And again, it's wonderful for everyone in the industry. However, when there's an explosion like this, it creates, I think frenzy might be the right word. And for anyone who's at the National, it really does feel that way. And so with that, there's such a desire to have skin in the game. There's such a desire to get involved and get involved quickly that buyers tend to not slow down. And that, I think that's where the danger is. Like, slow down, learn a little bit first before you go buy. And then in addition to that, when you have so many new buyers, and there are, again, just use your eyes at the National. When there's so many new buyers, there's also so many new dealers. There's so many new, influencers and podcasters and all these people coming into the hobby because there's an opportunity there as well on the other side of the coin. It's important that new buyers understand which of those folks really has knowledge to share, experience to share that could be beneficial to them as they go along their hobby journey, and which ones are just as new as they are. And so trying to discern between those two things can be challenging, certainly at times, but I think it's about that speed. Everyone wants in, you want in, there's that frenzied atmosphere. It's a little chaotic. Slow down. I would just recommend to any buyer, look, this is your money. I know you want to participate. Just slow down a little bit, learn as much as you can about these things, and try to establish key relationships that'll be beneficial to you in terms of guidance as you go forward. I know as a very young man, a long time ago, for me, that was part of my hobby journey, is meeting mentors in the business that would help me along the way and teach me what I didn't know. They had already been there and done that. It's important that you find those people in the business.
Good stuff. All right, listen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about, some of the stuff that's bothered me over the years. And during the commercial break, Joe, I'm going to try to eliminate the echo in your headset so you don't get a popsicle headache. Hang in there, and we will be right back.
In 1996, Brian Drent and the staff at Denver's Mile High Card Company have led the charge in the collectibles hobby. Mile High is a full-service dealer specializing in buying and selling cards and offers a competitive consignment program for all collectors. Whether it be their computerized want list service, appraisals, or auction services, Mile High has it all. If you've been searching for a company with a selection of high-grade vintage 1888 to 1970 baseball cards and memorabilia that shares your passion, aim high, Mile High. Go to milehighcardco.com or call 303-840-2784 for more information.
For more than 30 years, Robert Edward Auctions has been the industry leader when it comes to helping you realize the most money for your baseball cards and sports memorabilia. In addition to their unparalleled reputation for honesty and integrity, they reach the largest number of bidders in the business and offer lower sellers' fees, as well as generous cash advances up front on your valuable material. Contact them today at 908-226-9900. That's 908-226-9900 or at robertedwardauction.com.
This is Brian Drent, president of Mile High Card Company. Is your sports card and memorabilia collection properly insured? For easily replaced personal property, homeowners insurance is all most people need. But for prized possessions that you may have spent a lifetime collecting, it doesn't go nearly far enough. Collectibles Insurance Services has been insuring for over 50 years. They offer a full range of protection and a $0 deductible at an affordable rate with no appraisals required. I know because they insure my collection. If you have a minute, go to collectinsure.com and learn more about insuring your personal card or memorabilia collection.
Hi, this is Dan from Memory Lane Auctions, here to remind you that the renowned Memory Lane Collectibles Company has served as a beacon of light to the collecting community for the past several decades. Indeed, folks, it has been our utmost privilege and pleasure to provide the most enthusiastic collectors with an abundance of the finest sports cards and memorabilia for America's most coveted sports personalities via our world-class auctions. Whether you choose either a private sale transaction or the auction route, Memory Lane cordially invites you to reach out to us to maximize the value of your prized possessions. Also, it is not just sales that we pride ourselves on being the best of the rest, because if you are seeking a particular keepsake for your esteemed gathering, we will be relentless in our quest to find that special piece to fulfill your collecting dreams. So no time to wait. Reach out to us today for the purposes of capitalizing on our unparalleled marketing capabilities. Simply pick up the phone and dial 877-606-5263. That's 877-606-LANE, or find us on the World Wide Web at www.memorylaneinc.com. Now is the time for your valued consignment to ultimately become another one of Memory Lane's record-setting prices.
How would you like to own the bat that was used by your favorite player when he hit that towering home run or game-winning base hit? Now look no further than JT Sports, specializing in the sale and authentication of professional game-used bats. As the official authenticators of professional model game-used bats for PSA DNA, JT Sports will guarantee the authenticity of any bat purchased from them. JT Sports also buys and sells game-worn uniforms, gloves, and baseball equipment. The unique quality of the collectible is what JT Sports is all about. Give them a call at 609-487-8003 or check them out at GameUseBats.com.
Okay, we are back, and I am chatting with Joe Orlando, hobby legend, former president of PSA, executive vice president of Heritage Auctions, philanthropist. What else, Joe?
Dad to two crazy sons.
Dad of two nutty sons, right? Listen, I want to touch upon this. You know, again, we talk about a lot of good, a lot of the bad, so we're touching upon everything today. Lou, can you post, and again, I think we spoke about this on the stage at the National. Lou, can you post that image of that young lady with the sandals, if you can? Now, this is a perfect example, Joe, of what we talked about. It incenses me. I'm using the word incenses me to, and this is one of the scenes at the National where you have, kids looking for that chase card. We'll call it the chase card. and they're sitting there buying packs, ripping open the packs, and throwing great cards on the floor because it's not the chase card. I mean, you got to be kidding me here. What are your thoughts on that, Joe?
Oh boy, how much time do we have? First of all, there's something mildly inappropriate about that photo, but we'll get past that.
That was the only one we could find.
Sure, Tom, sure. Anyway, I mean, this is certainly a hot topic. And again, you could spend all sorts of time talking about this and related topics, and maybe we'll get into that today. Look, there's an explosion in participation in the hobby, but if we're being honest with ourselves, especially guys that have been around this for a while, and I don't know what percentage it is, but a pretty healthy percentage of the explosion isn't really based on what I would describe as traditional collecting, when you're trying to bring like items together and establish a collecting theme and work off a checklist and hunt and gather and build something. That's a different process than looking for quote unquote the hits. And when I say that, that's exactly how it's being marketed to
Right.
all of these new participants. Is, I mean, you see it all over the internet. You saw it at the show. It was literally on a giant sign.
I saw that.
The building, like, I forget exactly how it was worded, but it was something about, hey, this is where your hits happen or something like that. I mean, that's how it's being viewed, is like you have this, if you want to call it a dopamine hit, if you have this financial hit, people are seeking out these wins and they're taking the wins and then they're capitalizing on it. That's a little bit different than building something. And so what you're seeing, in that image, and this, again, this isn't totally new. So I want to be fair to what's happening. I saw this 25 plus years ago, where once those chase cards started to come into play, and that happened in the 1990s, especially towards the end of the decade, you would have these images of young, kids standing over a trash can, literally dealing out the cards in the pack directly into the trash can, and then finding that one that's worth keeping, putting it aside, and then keep going. That is, again, it's not totally new. It's not, in my view, a totally sustainable business model, because once the music stops, that emotional connection, that drive, that sort of sentiment, like, that's not going to keep you there because it's too focused on financial, again, quote unquote hits. But that's where we are. I think, again, if we have our eyes open and we're looking across the industry, there is a segment, I don't know what percentage it is, but there is a pretty healthy segment of people involved where they're just looking for those hits, and then the rest of it gets discarded in the manner that you see in that image.
So we talked about at length about looking at this whole hobby as part of as an alternative asset class. I've done it. I've made my collection part of my portfolio. Does that go hand in hand of what we're talking about with the hits? I mean, is that why they're trying to make the hit, to just improve their portfolios with no love or care at all for the hobby?
I think there's a little difference there. I think those are, a little bit different segment. The people, when you start using terms like alternative asset class, I think these are people that are focused on purchasing a specific asset, a collectible. They have their eyes on something that they think will provide long-term value. So, which is different than, I think, that the pack breaking, repacking, that kind of a thing, searching for hits focus. Those to me are two different things. But if we're talking about, this hobby as an alternative asset class, I'm going to play both sides of it. Okay.
Yep.
It would be disingenuous of me or anyone who has been doing this seriously for a long time to say that we don't consider the financial ramifications of what we do. Obviously, we want to buy things that we think it's a good place to put our money. That's not our primary objective. We do it because we love it. We have a passion for it. But of course, when the numbers start getting pretty big, of course you consider that as you make purchases. Again, it would be disingenuous to say otherwise. However, I think if that's your only motivation, if you're into this because you're like, look, I want to put some money into this, and I have no interest in the subject matter, I have no interest in the objects, I just want to put my money here. Look, that's a personal choice. I wouldn't recommend it, because I think what keeps us going in the hobby is to have some passion for it. Again, for some people it's nostalgia, for some people it's just interest in history, or just enjoying the stuff. I mean, just enjoying being a custodian of these wonderful things, these wonderful collectibles that we have available to us. That, to me, I think should be the primary sort of objective or focus. But look, if somebody wants to do it, you know it, I know it, and a lot of other veterans know it. If you buy the very best of the best, it is no different than beachfront property. Why does beachfront property always go up in value? Because there's not a lot of it. It's scarce. It's high quality. It's in a desirable location. It's the same thing here. So this is no different than any other place where you could spend your money. If you're buying the highest quality, you're buying the very best of the best, then over time, usually that stuff goes up. It doesn't always, but usually it does. It's a very kind of simple equation. So if that's someone's motivation, again, I try not to, be judgmental myself. If that's what they want to do, hey, it's up to you.
A good friend of ours, Mike, a good friend of mine and Lou's, Mike Lamazzo, my old co-host on another show, asked me to ask you what impact you think AI is having on the hobby today, and how much of an impact is AI going to have down the road?
On the second part, the latter part of that question, the answer is who knows, because I feel like we're in only the first inning or so of AI, and where this is all headed, Tom, again, who knows? Maybe the Terminators will come get us at some point. But on the first part, this question is kind of near and dear to my heart because of what I've experienced over the past couple of years. If I had a nickel for every time someone during a conversation over the past couple of years said to me, well, I asked ChatGPT, I asked Google, I asked AI how much my stuff was worth or what it was, that sort of thing, a very specific question that required a specific answer. I mean, I'd have billions. I mean, it comes up a lot now where people they're relying on it. I think too much at this stage. We don't know where AI is headed. Obviously, it's going to get better and better in a lot of respects. But at this stage of the game in the hobby, which requires a lot of specialized knowledge and a lot of detail to answer those questions, how can you possibly answer a question about value when you're not looking at it? You don't know the condition of it, the context of it. There's all this stuff that comes into play, whether it's a card or a Type 1 photo or whatever it is, an unopened box. I would say pump the brakes. My recommendation to people is, look, AI is wonderful for consolidating data, consolidating statistics, like looking up, getting a summary about an athlete. Those are great. But the real detailed questions that require detailed answers, I would pump the brakes, because there's something, when we were at the National, there's so much experience on that floor. There's so much experience in this hobby. I think it's much more important to establish relationships with people that have lived it and breathed it their entire lives, because that is far more valuable and will provide far better answers to those questions than asking AI at this stage. Because as we said on the stage at the National, there's a saying in machine learning called garbage in, garbage out. AI machines can only spit out what they're fed. And right now, the problem is they're being fed some good information, some bad information, and it all mixes together. So when they spit something out, sometimes you get a decent answer, sometimes you don't, but we're not there yet, would be my answer.
Just to kind of go hand in hand of what you're talking about, we look at, there are so many different platforms to sell on today. All right. I mean, you've got auction house. I mean, they're they're too numerous to mention. Is this changing the hobby? And I'm going to use an auction house as an example. I mean, is this going to impact all these different selling platforms? Are they going to impact auction houses or mom and pop card stores? What's your take on that?
I think, this is I think largely good news that look, collectors, buyers, we have more options than ever before by 100-fold, right? There are so many options for a seller. If you own something and you want to liquidate it, there are a tremendous amount of options. However, I think it's important to distinguish between a platform, an auction platform, and an auction house. Those are two very different things, in my opinion. An auction house provides expertise. It provides curation. It provides individuals that are working the other side of that transaction. For example, if you consign something to a classic auction house, the staff there, the experts on staff, they're working the phone for you. They're talking to prospective bidders and on your items and buyers of your items to help them, to guide them, and to help generate more interest in your items. If you go to an auction platform, it's kind of a faceless type thing where their advantage generally is speed and efficiency. You want to turn your items quickly, and perhaps you have something that doesn't require a lot of curation and expertise, doesn't require that effort on the other end of the transaction, talking to prospective buyers. Then look, there are those types of collectibles. There are plenty of them. Then an auction platform could be the best option for you if you're looking for speed and efficiency. So I just think it's important to make that distinction, because it's a different experience. You're getting different things in exchange for that, for you consigning that card, for you putting that item, whatever the item is, whatever collectible it is, on that platform. So the question is, do you want more involvement with the people at the auction house, or do you want less involvement? Are you more interested in speed? Does your item really not require that much curation or expertise? Then speed might be more interesting to you. So there's so many options right now. And that, by the way, that's just auction platforms and auction houses.
Right.
There's all these in-between things now too, where people liquidate things. People sell things on social media these days by the thousands. So it's a completely different world. Just make sure that whatever you have, you want to make sure that you're opening yourself up to the most potential buyers, and that whatever that platform or auction house offers is going to maximize value for you.
We are chatting with Joe Orlando. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, hey, Lou, I know you can hear me. Hopefully, Lou will jump in with us for the third segment, the last final segment, because I know he's got a couple of questions for Joe. So we're going to take a quick break. Hang in there. And again, sorry for all the technical crap. It's my computer. This is my backup computer. It sucks. With that being said, hang in there. We'll be right back.
Auction is a family-owned and operated online auction specializing in autographed memorabilia, sports cards, coins, art, and collectibles. Since their founding in 2010, they've grown to 2 facilities in Phoenix, Arizona, totaling over 60,000 square feet. Jared Cavalier and an incredible staff of over 150 team members serve a very large customer base and enjoy every minute of it. By working with leading authentication companies, Pristine ensures all items are 100% authentic. In addition, third-party authenticators regularly travel to Pristine Auction to provide authentication services on site. Pristine Auction strives to operate its business in a way that's honoring to God, their families, and their customers. With a strong focus on speed, quality, and premier customer service, their mission is to be the leading online auction for every level of collector and fan. Pristine also works for Hope Sports and Identity Hoops International, traveling to Mexico to build houses for the less fortunate. Pristine Auction offers several online auction formats with thousands of auctions ending each day. For more information, go to pristineauction.com. That's Pristine Auction. the best in the business.
If you're a discerning collector interested in owning the most important pieces in the hobby, look no further than Leland's Auctions. The original sports auction and appraisal house, Leland's was established in 1985 by legendary Pioneer founder Joshua Leland Evans. And today, President Mike Hefner carries on their tradition. From the Tom Brady card and memorabilia collection to the famed Boston Garden auction to high-end card auctions from every major sport, Leland's has always maintained the highest standards. Go to Lelands.com and get your bid in. That's Leland's, the hobby's leading sports auction house for 4 decades.
It's often been said that championships are won on the practice field, and world records come only to those willing to work harder than everybody else. Heritage Auctions is the world's largest collectibles auctioneer because we believe that becoming the best is only an invitation to the challenge of remaining the best. This requires the skills of the hobby's top experts, capable of identifying and maximizing value for our consigners. It requires the most visited website in the industry, courting a global audience of collectors over 1.5 million strong. It requires a dedicated press department that expands our global reach far beyond the entrenched hobby marketplace. It's hard work, but a simple premise. Present the finest collectibles to the largest population of potential buyers, and world records will come. We invite all listeners to put the unmatched power of Heritage Auctions to work for you. Auction evaluations are always free, and our commission-based fee structure ensures that our interests are always aligned. The highest possible price for your collectibles. There will always be new world records to chase, so let's chase them together. Visit our website at ha.com and request your no-obligation review today.
Hi, this is Dan from Memory Lane Auctions, here to remind you that the renowned Memory Lane Collectibles Company has served as a beacon of light to the collecting community for the past several decades. Indeed, folks, it has been our utmost privilege and pleasure to provide the most enthusiastic collectors with an abundance of the finest sports cards and memorabilia for America's most coveted sports personalities via our world-class auctions. Whether you choose either a private sale transaction or the auction route, Memory Lane cordially invites you to reach out to us to maximize the value of your prized possessions. Also, it is not just sales that we pride ourselves on being the best of the rest, because if you are seeking a particular keepsake for your esteemed gathering, we will be relentless in our quest to find that special piece to fulfill your collecting dreams. So no time to wait. Reach out to us today for the purposes of capitalizing on our unparalleled marketing capabilities. Simply pick up the phone and dial 877-606-5263. That's 877-606-LANE, or find us on the World Wide Web at www.memorylaneinc.com. Now is the time for your valued consignment to ultimately become another one of Memory Lane's record-setting prices.
We are back. Lou Blassie is in the house with us. Louis, how are you, buddy?
Fun, fascinating show so far.
Well,
Joe's
that's
really
good.
carrying the show, by the way. But
I know he is. I know he is. Joe always, when Joe's on, he always carries the show.
Please.
But listen, before we, there's a couple of other things I want to chat about, Joe. But Lou, I'm going to save you the effort. Let's talk about, and we had him on the stage with us, Tom Finkelmeyer. I am going to read it for you, Lou. How's that?
nice. I can't wait.
Finkelmeyer Insurance Agency has been insuring collectibles since the early 80s. The late Tom Finkelmeyer wrote the original sports memorabilia insurance policy when no one else in the industry was insuring sports collectibles. A lifelong collector of sports cards, Tom Sr. instilled a love of collecting in Tom Jr., the current president of Finkelmeyer Insurance Agency. Tom Finkelmeyer Jr., with 3 decades of insurance experience, has paired that expertise with 50 years of collecting. With a litany of professional designations, including counseling and risk management, Tom covers every aspect of your collectible insurance needs. Unlike some of the companies that sell collectibles insurance directly to the consumer online, Finkelmeyer is the only independent retail agent who specializes in sports memorabilia and collectibles nationwide. representing all major companies that sell collectibles insurance. There is no agent that insures more collectors, dealers, appraisers, auctioneers, or events in the collectibles hobby than Finkelmeyer Insurance.
Doesn't our buddy John Tobby use them?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked, Lou. Our good friend and hobby legend, John Tobby of JT Sports, has been using Finkelmeyer Insurance for over 20 years. Now, keep in mind, John, how old is John? About 90, 95 now? But no, John is a great guy. For more information, go to this is kind of a funky website address, thefia.com, THEAFIA.com. That's Finkelmeyer Insurance, where collecting is our passion. And we had Tom on stage with us for about 5 or 10 minutes, and he educated the crowd in insurance needs. Joe, yes. I want to get back, if we may, for a moment, about the whole eye appeal effect. Can you just, because a lot of our listeners have really, that's important to them. Give us some of the upside, the downside, a little of everything on that again, please.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the upside is it's a natural part of the maturity of this hobby, because again, how do we enjoy it as collectors? We enjoy things at arm's length, and eye appeal means a lot more to us when we're looking at the aesthetics of the card and focused on the center of the card versus the technical attributes that it has. So I think it's a natural part of the evolution of our hobby. I think it's part of the maturity. I think it's a wonderful movement. Where it goes, we'll see. I think we could be very early in this. The only downside that I've seen, and I'm saying this with a little smile on my face, is that now some people have become so obsessed with it, which is fine. I mean, look, we all like what we like, right? They've become so focused on eye appeal that they're forgetting that that's the exception to the rule. So in other words, expectations have risen. And so when you have something like a 1951 Bowman Willie Mays rookie card, right? That card is almost always off center. It almost always has some kind of print problem on the card. So when you find one that is beautiful, it has beautiful print quality, it's wonderfully centered, that is the extreme exception. And so I think we just need to keep that in mind, that when you find these incredible examples, it doesn't matter if it's a 2, a 5, a 7, whatever the numerical grade is underneath it, when it has that level of exceptional eye appeal, keep in mind, by definition, it is the exception to the rule. It is not. So we have to also realize that what average examples look for in each category. And that's not a bad thing. That just means that this is what they normally look like in that grade category. So I think separating those two things and keeping that in mind and keeping that perspective, rather, as a buyer is really important.
Well, Joe, the thing here is traditional grading had a strike zone. It's a very technical, as you've mentioned before, it's a technical procedure, which you can look at the playbook and say, this is why it's a 7, this is why it's a 6, this is why it's a 5, and it's objective to a large degree. The problem with eye appeal is it's totally subjective, right? And so what you get on one official grader on eye appeal might be different from another official grader on eye appeal, and there's no playbook to really go by. I mean, it's a necessary part of the hobby, but it's going to be difficult because it's totally subjective.
I would counter that respectfully with, I would gather that if you had, let's say, 10 very astute card buyers at a table, collectors, really experienced guys, I think they would be way more apt to agree on eye appeal than grade. So I would actually turn the argument around. I think being on the same page about technical grading sometimes can be more challenging, especially as you go down the grading scale, because you're having to consider all sorts of different attributes. Well, it's got this little wrinkle on the back. It's got this frayed corner in the upper left. And it's all these different combinations that can still result in the same number, where eye appeal, I would tell you this, Lou, that most people, again, just a kind of an old saying, you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
If you have experienced guys around a table, I really feel like they would be way more apt to agree on on eye appeal than technical grade. If we were going by percentages, how often they agree on exceptional eye appeal, how often they agreed on technical grade, just because there's so many other attributes to consider on technical grade. Eye appeal, it's how you walk into a museum and you see a painting on the wall and it just immediately grabs your eye. That's eye appeal. Like it hits you on a visceral level. And I think it doesn't take long for someone to see, oh yeah, that really jumps out in the crowd of that category of card.
Eventually, does it get expressed as a grade itself, or does it get expressed as a relative grade to the actual grade? In other words, a +1 or a +1.5 or a +0.5 or something like that.
I mean, you never know, right? We were talking about AI and where that's all headed. I mean, you never know where it could head down the road. I would say that it's more of a complement to and not a separate technical grade. But I certainly think, as we've discussed, I mean, the results are in already. There are situations where people are not just paying 20% more or even 50% more. They're paying 2-3x, even more than that, for something that really leaps out to them from an eye appeal perspective. So I do think we might be very early in this maturity, but yeah, my view is maybe not technical. I don't think it'll be as technical, but certainly a complementary piece to the underlying grading foundation.
Joe, we talked about this also. I mentioned this to you. I want to touch upon what has become real prevalent in this hobby, and that is the influencer. Now, you worked with him too. I really enjoyed working with Gordy Bonkers. Now, Gordy is a young gun, vintage guy, and he's an influencer. He's an influencer, and he's a very successful influencer. But Gordy knows the business. He has a passion for the business. He has a passion for vintage cards. Another guy, I don't know if you know him, but he really is a nice guy, Mike Gio from Sports Card Nonsense. These are guys that are young, that really have a passion and know the hobby. How many times did I walk around that hobby floor? There's one that just sticks out, and I was going to walk up to the mic and say something. So there was this young gal, probably 21, 20, and she had a microphone set up on a stand, and she's an influencer, and she was talking about the hobby, what cards she would buy, what people should do. And I listened to her for about 3 minutes, and I really felt like saying, why are you even on this show floor talking and trying to influence people? And then there's another segment that some of them have become extremely successful, and they're influencers. They call themselves influencers, but all they're doing is advising people on how to find that hit. It's killing me. It's absolutely killing me. What is your take on all this influencer stuff?
Let's see if I can break this down in under 3 weeks. There's a lot here. I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think for the listener of, when you're viewing that content, because to me, there's a difference between content producers, content providers, and real influencing. I mean, and this is unfair to the whole group, but think about the word influencer. What does it mean? They're trying to influence you to take a certain action. I think that's where it gets tricky. It's like, if you get the sense that you're listening to this content, you're viewing this content, and you get the sense that they're really pushing you in a direction. They're not just providing content. They're not providing education. They're pushing you in a certain direction. Then, yeah, they are literally trying to influence you to take a certain action. I think that the listeners, the viewers, they have to discern between those two things. And as soon as they realize that someone is pushing something on them, then they might question their agenda.
You know what the problem is with that, Joe? And I agree with you. they're influencing young adults who are easily influenced. You know what I'm saying?
True. No, I mean they're impressionable. It's a trick. No, I mean look, the bottom line is it's a very sort of tricky, ocean of things to deal with here. I mean, there's a lot because, like you said, they're everywhere, multiple different levels. Some of them do it really well. They're providing great content. They have great viewership, great followers. They're doing a great job.
No,
of it.
no.
Other ones, it's hard to tell which ones are credible and which ones aren't. I think it's it probably takes some trial and error as a viewer, as a listener, but you have to be able to discern between those two things and make sure that whatever is being provided to you adds value to your hobby experience. If it adds value and it's credible what they're saying, then hey, wonderful. But I think, it's not just our hobby. I think you could say this about every category of goods and services where there's a presence of influencers. Some are experts, some are not. Some have wonderful a huge group of followers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not trying to push you in a certain direction. It's a minefield for sure, but you just have to try to discern between those things.
Louis?
Joe's exactly right on all that, but what I wanted to add to it is people have to learn, especially young kids have to learn buyer beware. It's a capitalist society. This is what's going on. This is the way of the world. And in my mind, whatever brings anybody new to the front door of this hobby is a plus, right? How they get in, whether it's a plus or minus for them initially, but if they get interested and they get pulled in, it's a plus for all of us.
We have a couple of minutes left, Joe. I'm going to ask you, these are bullet questions. You're like, bing, 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 bing. You ready? All right, here we go. Women's sports, good, bad. What's going to happen in the hobby?
Well, I think there's been more interest in it since this COVID explosion. I think it's all going to be driven just like every other sport on planet Earth. It's all driven by the star appeal and their sustainability, like their level of excellence, because it doesn't matter if you're an MMA fighter or in the WNBA or whatever it is, they need those stars to kind of carry they're sort of carrying the torch for that league. And the more they can draw people in and experience that sport, the more effect it'll have on the hobby, I think, for those categories.
Is Sophie Cunningham starting to have an impact here on the hobby at this point? Because from a social media standpoint, obviously she's
having an impact on me.
Yeah. Amen, brother.
And we have a wrap. That's been nice seeing you guys today. But,
come on, who doesn't love Sophie Cunningham?
I love her. She's great.
But has she started to find her way into the hobby in terms of cards being on sale?
Oh, I think she has already. I think she's had an impact, Joe. Wouldn't you?
I think there's no question about it. I mean, it's a little outside of my area of expertise, to be quite frank. But you see the sales, I think you could connect those two things when you see them rise in sort of fan following. That spills over directly into collecting, and so there's no question.
Joe, what about the international market? International, they had a whole international section at the national. What's your thoughts on the international market and the hobby?
Yeah, I mean, the wonderful thing about our hobby, we were talking about the options we all have now. I mean, we are all connected across the world. It's not, going way back. I remember I was limited to the local baseball card shop, going back in the 1980s. In an occasional show, maybe a little bit of mail order, in the mid 1980s. Now, I mean, we are connected across the world, and it has opened up all of these opportunities. You see the past 5 or 10 years, look at soccer cards. I mean, look at soccer collectibles, period, in our hobby. They were just cast aside forever and ever and ever. And now some of these, cards of Messi and Ronaldo and jersey, I mean, they're six-figure items, like routinely. And so it has just opened up so much, and now you're seeing participation shows, offices open up all over the world. The one thing I would say here, all you have to do is follow the big companies in the hobby, whether it's an auction house or a manufacturer or whatever, and you look to see how they're expanding a grading service, look at how many of these large entities are expanding in countries all over the globe. That'll tell you all you need to know about where this is headed, because they wouldn't spend the money, they wouldn't invest in that unless they saw what was going on. They saw the potential for growth. So that'll tell you all you need to know. Just follow the expansion of the major entities.
Which North American sport has the biggest share of the international market?
Well, I mean, basketball is, basketball, if you go to, it might as well be the national sport in Asia. It's like in China, it is such a huge part of the collecting community there. I would say basketball has done the best job as a sport of promoting across the world. And I think, and not to go off too much on this, but I think a lot like soccer, and I mean this again in a very positive way, there is a simplicity to basketball. Not that it's easy to play at a high level, but there's something about it that connects people from all walks of life, all different cultures. And I think that has enabled them to expand across the globe, strong presence in Europe, strong presence in Asia, where some of the other sports have had a harder time. Football is doing what they can over the past, many years now, expanding globally, but baseball has its,
it's a financial thing. Basketball, all you need is a pair of sneakers and some shorts.
Right.
Same thing with soccer, a pair of soccer cleats and a ball.
Right.
It makes it really, really, really simple. Joe, one last question. You were the president of PSA for many years, and I know you saw your ups and downs with backlogs and all of that stuff. Okay. Now, I know that there's been a huge frustration on the general population with not just PSA, but third-party grading with the backlogs. PSA has committed to spending $200 million on the infrastructure and hiring 1,000 people in the next, coming years, year or two. Is this going to, in your opinion, you think this eventually will relieve the backlog, or is it just going to continue?
Well, again, it's this, right? It's how much is coming in versus capacity. I would say this, I know on being on the other side of it, right? You work at an auction house, you're a collector, whatever you are. I know how frustrating it is when you see the shutdowns and you see the backlogs and you see the turnaround times. I get it. But PSA, I was there for a long time. They have to preserve the brand that they've established. And so they are not going to do it by cutting corners and putting people into the seats that shouldn't be there. That would ruin everything, they've built over 35 years. So they realize that it's frustrating being on the other side of it. I would implore the collecting community to understand that look, it's in the best interest of everyone to expand capacity in the right manner versus just, appeasing people in the short term, pleasing them in the short term and not thinking about the long term. That's why they're investing so much in the infrastructure.
Joe, let's go back to AI here, because AI has to play a role eventually in this AI grading.
No question. I think that there's a lot that can be done as a grading assist. There's no question about it. And I think you're going to, I think you'll see that in the coming years. I think it's like you've sort of alluded to. It's inevitable, right? It's a lot of this is inevitable, but how much of a role it will play will be interesting. I think there's a need for a balance between technology and human intervention. But again, we're in the first inning with AI, so the rest remains to be seen.
Joe, I can't. This was great. This was a great hour, a little over an hour. Really, really informative, and I hope our viewers really appreciate us getting Mr. Orlando on with us.
And thanks for carrying the show, Joe.
You guys know I always love coming on.
Listen, special thanks and apologies to all of the great auction house owners and guests that we had on this stage. There's too many to mention, but we had about 12 of them. And unfortunately, you're not going to get to see them. You probably get to see them, but you're not going to be able to hear them. My thanks to that whole gang. We had a blast with them. Joe, I can't thank you enough. Next week, we're going to oh, by the way, next week, Louis, we may have a special guest.
Oh.
We may be talking some 1967 Red Sox because I think Jim Lomborg is going to be joining us with Rico's. So it's going to be a 1967 chat. We'll have some fun with that. To our viewers and listeners, we had a blast at the National. I know a lot of you were there. We saw a lot of you. It was great seeing some of you guys, not all of you, but some of you. No, it was really good. And thank you all so much for your support. A year from now at the 2027 National, we will be releasing our new book. I'm really excited about that. And Mr. Orlando will be there signing with us. He doesn't know that yet, but he will. With that being said, to our viewers and listeners, Joe, thanks again. Louis, great job. Sorry for the technical crap at the beginning. What can I say? It's technology. With that being said, happy collecting.
Thanks, guys.